Alright, so if you're a boxing fan, you've probably watched an MMA fight and thought, what is going on with that striking? Right? The punches can look kind of wide, the stances seem all squared up, and the defense? Well, it doesn't look nearly as tight. You might even think it looks a little sloppy. But here's the thing, it's not. It's a totally different beast, an art that's been reshaped by a completely different set of problems. So let's get into it and really unpack why that is.
You know, this comment from a user on Reddit just absolutely nails it. It really gets to the heart of the whole thing. It's not about one being better or worse, it's all about purpose. See, in one sport, boxing is the entire conversation. And the other, it's just the opening line. And that's where we're going to start.
So before we jump into the nitty-gritty, the actual techniques, we have to get our heads around the philosophy behind it all. We're really talking about a specialist versus a generalist. Two incredible athletes, for sure, but their main goals couldn't be more different.
This slide pretty much says it all. Think about it. Boxing is called the sweet science because fighters have taken a very small set of tools, basically 4 types of punches, and refined them to an unbelievable level. The whole game is played with just those pieces. But in MMA, boxing is just one tool in a big, messy toolbox. A fighter's using their hands, yeah, but not just to score a knockout. They're trying to make their opponent lift their head to land a kick, or get them to drop their hands to shoot for a takedown. It's a multi-tool, not a scalpel.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But what does it actually look like in a fight? Let's break down the 3 most obvious visual differences: the stance, the guard, and the way they move their head.
So a traditional boxer stands bladed, sideways. It makes them a smaller target and gives their jab a ton of reach. It's a perfect stance for punching. But in MMA, that same stance is a huge kick-me sign. That front leg is just begging to be chopped down by a low kick, and standing sideways makes you super easy to take down. That's why MMA fighters are more squared up. It's a trade-off, right? Their punches might be a little shorter, but they have a solid base to defend against everything else coming their way.
Next up, the guard. A boxer's guard is up high, it's tight, kind of like a shell around their head. And it works because those big, puffy gloves give them a lot of real estate to hide behind. But then you see MMA fighters with their hands way lower and further out, and you think, why? Well, it's not a rookie mistake, it's totally necessary. Those hands have to do a lot more than just block punches. They've got to be ready to stop a wrestler from diving at their legs, to fight for what they call an underhook. It's all about defending the takedown.
And this is where the risk factor really comes into play. In boxing, a deep bob and weave is a thing of beauty. You slip under a punch, you come up with a huge counter, it's gorgeous. But if you try that in an MMA fight, you could be ducking your head right into a knee or a shin coming up to meet you. Ouch. A simple slip to avoid a punch can turn into a fight-ending head kick. So naturally, the head movement in MMA has to be way more subtle, way more careful. Little slips are good, big dramatic ducks, that's a gamble you just don't want to take.
So we've seen what looks different. Now we get to the really fun part. Why? All these little changes, they aren't just for show. They are absolutely essential for survival, when danger can come at you from literally every angle. This is the core of it right here.
And that one simple fact, that you're defending against so much more than just fists, is the reason for every single change we've talked about. It completely rewrites the playbook on how to strike effectively.
And this extra danger really comes in 3 main flavors that you just don't see in a boxing ring. You've got the kick, the takedown, and the clinch. Each one of these completely changes the striking game.
Let's start with kicks. Just knowing that a brutal kick could come at your lead leg at any second means you can't load up on it for power like a boxer does. It forces you into that squared stance so you can lift a leg and check a kick. Basically, block it shin on shin. And like we just said, the threat of a head kick is exactly why that beautiful bob and weave is so dangerous.
But honestly, the #1 game changer is the takedown. The fear of ending up on your back makes fighters adopt that lower, wider stance. It looks a lot like a wrestler's stance, and for good reason. It's why their hands are lower, ready to sprawl and defend. It also creates this thing some people call decision fatigue. Is that a real punch coming, or is it a fake to set up a takedown? You have to make that choice in a split second, and it completely messes with your striking rhythm.
And there's no better example of this in history than Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, this guy was landing punches on strikers who were, on paper, way better than him. Why? Because his opponents were so frickin' terrified of his wrestling. They couldn't fully commit to their punches because they were constantly thinking, is the takedown coming? The mere threat of grappling was enough to completely neutralize world-class boxing. It's just incredible.
Okay, so all of this is built on an even deeper foundation. These strategies don't just pop up out of nowhere. They are born from the one thing that really defines any sport, the rules. The environment itself shapes the evolution of the athlete.
A quick glance at this table tells the whole story. I mean, look at the gloves. Big pillows in boxing versus these tiny little things in MMA. The fighting area, an open ring versus a cage, which adds a whole other layer with wall wrestling. And of course, the rules themselves. Boxing says you can only punch. MMA says, here's a massive toolbox of attacks you can use. Every single rule forces a different strategy.
Let's just focus on those gloves for a sec. 4 to 6 ounces. They're tiny. They're really just there to protect the fighter's hand, not the other guy's face. And what that means is that a classic peekaboo boxing defense is basically useless. Punches can just sneak right through the gaps. You simply can't hide behind them, which forces a much more active, much more mobile kind of defense.
And check this out. The differences go even deeper than what happens inside the cage. A study from the National Institutes of Health found that it even changes how fighters prepare. Because grappling often rewards size and strength, MMA has developed this culture of more extreme weight cutting. As you can see here, MMA and Muay Thai fighters tend to cut way more weight before a fight than boxers do. It's a whole different world, from top to bottom. So, let's bring this all home. The debate about which style is better or which fighter is tougher, it's kind of a silly question. It's just the wrong way to look at it. At the end of the day, it's about using the right tool for the right job. And this is the main takeaway, the thing to remember. What you see in MMA isn't bad boxing. It's adapted boxing. It's a style that's been perfectly tweaked to solve a much more chaotic and complicated problem. It's not a surgeon's scalpel. It's a Swiss Army knife. And sometimes, a Swiss Army knife is exactly what you need. You know, there's actually a term for this whole idea. It's called context-specific skill. And it just means that the techniques you see are a direct result of the world they exist in. A boxer's amazing, fluid footwork is perfect for the context of a boxing ring. An MMA fighter's more planted, cautious movement is perfect for the context of a cage where kicks and takedowns are always a threat.
I think this is the best analogy to wrap it all up. A boxer is a master swordsman, the best fencer in the world who has perfected one beautiful, deadly weapon. An MMA fighter, on the other hand, is a soldier. They need to know how to use a rifle, sure, but they also need a sidearm, a knife, and hand-to-hand combat. So of course, their sword fighting is going to look a little different. They're solving a bigger, messier problem.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. As these athletes get better and start cross-training from day one, are we going to see these two styles start to look more alike? Or will the unique pressures of each sport push them to become even more specialized and even further apart? It's a pretty fascinating thing to think about next time you tune in for a fight.